Good evening and welcome to Phil Goes Deep. This is episode 3 of QUIBExperience. What I learned this week, focusing on UI Builder. And tonight I'm pleased to say I'm joined by James Neal, the man who is responsible for the Explore Developer Toolkit, co-founder of ShareLogic, and also a titan of Now. So let me bring James in and let him introduce himself properly. James, you should be on the screen, I believe. So.
Lovely. Welcome. Thank you for the welcome. I don't think I can follow that with a better intro, mate. That's it. Been in ServiceNow for 10 years. Been building integrations and apps for all of that time, really. And running my own little service company with my co-founder, Tim, for the past 5.5 years. So, yeah, thanks for having me.
No, thanks for joining me. So, as I say to all my guests, you're my third guest now. Apologies for any technical issues. It's all my fault. I'm pretty new to this stuff, but you've actually been sort of live streaming yourself recently as well, haven't you? So I tuned into you on Twitch, and now you're on YouTube, and I'll link your channel. I think it might even be in the description. But how have you found live streaming?
It's been a steep learning curve. It's been good though. I like the interaction. I like catching up with people and sort of sharing some of the knowledge, I guess, that I've gained over the years that doesn't normally come up every day. But you're like, do you know what? That's a good little nugget of information there, and go off on a tangent. That's what I find fun. So yeah, I haven't done it for a couple of weeks because I've just been so busy, but planning on more stuff to come soon. So
last time I watched, it was you were building the test screen in Portal for Unify.
That's it.
Which is your bi-directional integration products from ShareLogic. Have I got that right? What do you want to say a bit more about what Unify is?
Yeah, sure. So Unify is our integration platform for ServiceNow. It's specifically for e-bonding, really, ticket exchange. It can do anything you like, but it's just born out of building integrations in old ServiceNow, and coming up against all the different kind of scenarios that enterprises have. It's custom requirements all the time. It's stuff that just gets thrown at you at the last second that you then have to rebuild the whole thing to cater for, and all of the other really, really complex stuff around just general bi-directional ticket exchange where, you've got inbound, outbound, and you've got all of the complexity for operations around that. So Unify is takes care of all of that for you. So you can build an integration to something in 10 minutes from completely custom code. And what we like to say there is that there's not really if you've got a requirement that is completely out of this world, Unify will be able to cater for it.
That is a very strong statement. So what do you know about UI Builder? Because that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I saw you were doing stuff in Service Portal. Have you managed to play around with UI Builder yet?
Not properly, no. I think I've watched some of the videos, and I've watched I've had a look at it, and it all seems really straightforward and really easy to use interface. That's so, but I'm just excited to get in there really and get stuck in and see what we can do. It's when you're doing a lot of things, you don't have a lot of time to make way for just playing anymore. So this is one of those times. It's kind of a luxury. It's a nice thing to just get stuck in, get an excuse to have a look around.
Yeah, well, it's taken me some getting used to. This is, like I say, third episode, but I did something called How Hard Can It UI Be? And there's just so many options, so many areas and things to click on. And it's like, I guess if you think of it as like a toolbox, if you look at an expert at anything, like, I don't know, a plumber or a mechanic, they're going to have all these extra tools, and you don't know when to use that specific tool. So I think the more I use it, the more I'm like, oh, okay, I know to go there. There's a bit of muscle memory. I feel like I'm getting my way around it. Tonight we're going to talk about GraphQL, because previously I did something on data, trying to bring my data into the Now experience and then feed an out-of-the-box component. So, these components expect their data to be served up in a certain way. And sometimes when you just pull data from a glide record, it's not in the format that the component expects. So we've got to kind of transform that data and I managed to do that without GraphQL, and I felt like this isn't really what UI Builder wants from me. So
Yep.
I played around a little bit in the last week, and I'm just going to walk through that and see if we can figure it out, and see what's involved, see what else we can do with it. There's a lot more information available in the community. I'll just shout out the developer blog, so developer.servicenow.com. if you check out the UI Builder tags, snashley.com. Ashley is posting lots of stuff like glide modal, declarative actions, things that I've not really got my head around yet. I've seen some of the screenshots of what she's building, so there's people that are way ahead of what I'm doing, but I'm just trying to kind of share my learning along the way. ServiceNow ninjas as well, they're going to start getting a bit deeper. So lots of information out there, and hopefully people can enjoy this learning experience as well. I'm going to try and switch from Zoom into our browser now and share my screen, and then we'll work through what I've built and see how that goes. So
before we jump in, mate, I've got to shout out Harry Pearson here. AngularJS 1.6 is better than web components. So we'll see you later then.
Sorry, right, hold on.
In the chat.
In the chat, Harry Pearson. Right, shout out to Harry. AngularJS is better than web. Do you know what? That might be a good discussion to have, James. I'm not precious about any of this technology. I don't know it very well. I think that's probably what it is. Like AngularJS, I can fumble my way around. I'm just opening. I realised I had to reboot the browser, so I can fumble my way around in Service Portal, but I don't know. I don't know. Is AngularJS better than web components? What do you think?
Do you know what? It's probably no. I'm going to say no. It's not better than web components, just because I think I'll get some questionable comments next time I meet people. For me, it's about does it do the job? And AngularJS gets a lot of slack. Obviously, it is a completely defunct kind of way of building things now. I don't know how many versions of Angular there are after that, but it works. It's not the prettiest necessarily, but I'm certainly building a lot of portals in it. You get used to it, and there's lots. You can do a lot of cool stuff with it, but you can also do a lot of stuff that's kind of difficult. And I don't think that goes away with. You can kind of break things quite easily as well, but I don't think that necessarily goes away with different, methodologies in a sense of building things. It's just a different way of doing things that makes something easier, makes more things complicated. And you got to admit, developers love just a new toolkit, so but they're just going to keep churning them out.
Well, I understand web components is supposed to be like the new way of doing things, the new modern way of doing things. And obviously, when you're talking about things like React and I think GraphQL as well, both came from Facebook, and that experience, that one-page site experience, back in the day, you had to change page and maybe pass parameters in and so on. But that ability to pass events around in UI Builder, it seems really straightforward. I didn't quite get my head around it in Portal, to be honest.
It definitely is, and I think so that is kind of just a way of thinking about how you do things. And I think, I still do that in Portal. It's just I have to code everything myself. Whereas obviously UI Builder presents that to you in a layer that is just, it makes it much more intuitive. And I think that's going to be really powerful. It's just really nice to see that coming out and being much more readily available, I guess, as a design pattern that, people are going to be using all the time. We're going to have much slicker interfaces. It's going to be much faster. We're not waiting for load times and all of that kind of stuff. It's good. Sweet.
Well, hopefully Harry enjoyed that. Shout to Raf as well. James Furt. David Huang's on. So
yeah,
we've got a few of the crew locked in. So I've got UI Builder saved as a favourite. So that's just popping straight up there. What I'm going to do, James, is just show something that I've been building, and then work backwards a little bit, and we can try and play with it. So you probably know that I tend to stick with the kind of GRC use cases. There's a lot of opportunity to connect data in GRC. And previously I was using the breadcrumb. I was abusing the breadcrumb because, you know, a breadcrumb is like getting from one page to the next page, and how did I get here? I've actually got here a breadcrumb. Let me open this and see the full experience. I was using the breadcrumb here to trace back the relationships related to this. So right now I'm in an issue. Okay, so that issue there is related to that control. Okay, it's that simple. But how I'm doing it now, when I showed this, I think it was last week on the show with Raf, I had produced that that JSON package with just standard script include, you know, JavaScript doing a glide record. I'm now doing that with GraphQL. So I've got to try and remember what I did. How did I do this? So if we look at the breadcrumb component, and maybe we'll look around at some of the other components and see if we can manipulate our data accordingly. But this breadcrumb component, let me add in a brand new breadcrumb, okay, and then you'll see what it's expecting. So I think there's over 100 components that came out of the box with Quebec, and there's more to come. I think there's stuff coming around theming and templates. There's lots of stuff that's going to make this stuff easier. But yeah, let's look at this. So we've got an array of objects, okay, which is pretty standard, I think, for a breadcrumb, right? You've got label, you've got href, you can pass in our icon and some other properties, and then you've got the next one. So obviously an array is an ordered list with the objects in there. So I want to get my data into that format. So what I've done up here is I'm passing in here. So the @ data, that's saying go to my data resources, and down here I've got my data resources, local data resource instances. So once you've created a data resource, you can then create an instance of that data resource with slightly different parameters. So if we say add, you can see in the scope here, PGD1, these are things I've created. If I want a new one, I can create a new one here. So what have I done here? Up in that component, data GRC QL1, which I think is this, that's a transform. And you can also preview the data. Okay, so I'm actually passing a GraphQL object in from GRC1 output, and that is getting data from get issue result number value. So, you know, it might seem like a bit of a bit of a long thread there, but effectively I've got, you know, a component that's consuming the data that's been served up and then processed, transformed through these different resources. But I've actually got some GraphQL that's going on, so I guess we'll get to that. So get issue, I think is, yeah, this is taking, so get issue is a standard component, no, sorry, standard data resource. So if I go in here and say add data resource, I clicked it, yeah, click it, global server data lookup record, okay. So lookup record, I specified the table, and then context properties is my page property there.
That's the parameter, isn't it?
Yeah. So if I go to, let's just check that, it's a required parameter. I don't think I've actually changed anything. Yeah, sysid. So that sysid named there is my context properties sysid. So I say, with that sysid on this table, get me a record which gives me result item. Is it results? Oh, okay. So I've specified down here return field. So this is another kind of GraphQL feature where you say what you want and you only get that back. I was thinking that GraphQL was going to give us a lot of benefit for, like, a lot of performance improvement. but I think that performance improvement is still only at the client side.
I'm not really sure, to be honest. I think the main benefit there is just you're able to, I mean, this is clearly a UI builder feature on top of that's generating your GraphQL and then, allowing you to work with that. But this makes it easier to work with and build your own data models that you need. So you're not working with just the standard, you're not building a custom web service to return this kind of model, and you're not returning all of the data and all of the reference fields and all of the stuff if you were to do a full record query from an individual record.
Yeah, and I think, like I say, the performance is at the client level, because behind the scenes, and this caught me off, is there's still a glide record query going on. So yes. This is like the server has been, the database has said, right, give me that record. The server's processed it and passed it again, to this query. But then we've said only bring these values into the client, and I think that's where the performance is that the client.
So it will be faster on the server, because just for example, you're looking at your profile there. That's a reference field, and it's the display values email. So there's no record lookup to email to actually go and figure out what the display value is. Sorry, there is there, but you're not doing that for every single field in the record.
Okay. So yeah, it blows my mind, some of this stuff. So I thought with UI Builder, I keep thinking, and I've said to Raph a few times, I'm flying now, mate. I'm flying. And then I think we compared ourselves to sparrows, baby sparrows, where you think you're flying and then you feel the force of the ground hit you. So where was I? This data resource get issue, right? In here, I say data get issue result dot number dot value. So this query grc1 is, I think, doing the GraphQL. So you can see then in here output dot data dot etc. So let's try and find that, because if you create a brand new one, so if I go add data resource here, and then I look at it and go, well, I haven't got any I need, create new, and you select GraphQL, that takes you to this table, sys ux data broker GraphQL.
Yep.
And then if you do new transform, that takes you to sys ux data broker transform. So obviously, first thing we do then is go in here and go .list, and I think this is my query.
So this is kind of almost a separation of concern kind of thing here. We'll build the query in one place and we'll make it look like what we need it to look like in another. So in theory, that's simplifying, the management and the building and the maintenance of this kind of stuff, and meaning that you can use it in different ways, without having to build, the same thing multiple times.
That's the bit that I'm struggling with, is how to make your data schema, or how to design your data schema effectively to make it reusable across multiple pages. So when we look at UI Builder, these data resources belong to this page.
Yeah.
So within my experience, if I create another page, you could be in danger of recreating stuff, right? And then that could feel painful. But I think if you know where you're trying to get to, and you've got a bit kind of a practice there, then next time you would say, oh, actually, I'll do that differently. So I'm trying to get to that point where I think, right, okay, I know what I'm doing, and I've built here a data broker, which is effectively, if you go to GraphQL in the platform, GraphQL has been available since Paris. GraphQL APIs, I think that's actually different. So, I'm still trying to, that's GraphQL API. Of course it is. So that's the other bit. So you need a schema, and then this query here, this data broker is a query, and that's querying my schema. So you see that PGD1 test. If we go in here and look under application
This
namespace,
namespace, yeah.
schema namespace, query. Okay, and schema's got query. Mutation is if you're doing an update, a create, a delete, etc. Queries like your get. Mutation is like your post, etc. So query refers to an object called query, so therefore we create an object called query. This issue takes an input. You see the parenthesis there. Is the screen size okay?
Yes, for me it's fine. Yeah, it looks okay.
Okay, so then the colon issue, you can see it's capitalized.
Yep.
That type is an issue. This issue has got all of these things on it, right? All of these properties. Notice there's no comma, there's no semicolon. It's all like line break. Similar to Python, I think. If you mess around with Python, it doesn't care for things like semicolons, but it does care for tabs and line breaks and so on. So it seems similar in GraphQL. But my name, my property name is then followed by a colon, and when we then say, for instance, opened by, type is a user, and this is where we start getting some reuse. Okay, so user, obviously, okay, on this occasion, this issue is a task, by the way, so opened by, assigned to. You could actually do that now. You could say in here, assigned to. Wrong one. Assigned to. It's going to reuse that user object. Okay, so I don't need to define that user object. I do need to change this parameter value there. Sorry, I don't know what these things are called. I've not studied GraphQL. There's a lot of documentation available on it. This source bit here tells us that it needs to be looked up. So you can define your. So this is the API or the schema, otherwise known as SDL, right? Then down here you've got your scripted resolvers. So you can see there, get user by ID. You then have a resolver mapping. So because I've just added in assigned to, I think, yeah, you see issue opened by, I then need to create issue assigned to, and my resolver will be get user by ID. So it's quite a bit of kind of legwork to get to a point where you've got some meaningful data that's displaying itself in a way that's quite nice. When you create these reference objects, apologies for anyone that actually knows GraphQL and I'm using the wrong terms of reference.
Yeah, I'll hold my hands up here as well. I'm not experienced in this at all. I've read up a little bit on it, but you just, when you're in ServiceNow, we haven't needed it until this point, really, have we? So.
No, I've seen it, and do you know what? I thought I've got to go back. I've got to figure this stuff out. So I went online, obviously, YouTube, and I searched for GraphQL. I'll shout out Ashutosh. He did something on Paris on GraphQL, which is very helpful. And then there was a live coding happy hour in October, and I was watching it thinking, I remember this. And then I watched the live chat, and I was in the live chat asking questions. I thought, yeah, but at the time I was watching it was so new, and watching someone else do it and not having that application, it was like, okay, that looks cool, but like, and I think Brad was building an actual custom component. So now I don't want to build a custom component. I've got loads of components. I want to use them, but I want my data in there. That's the problem that I'm trying to solve now.
So traditionally, if I was building this in a script include, obviously I know you did that, but each one of these is essentially a function that's going to return me, or method that's going to return me that data object. So all we're doing is defining that and defining the way that that's going to be looked up, and then it's going to be plumbed all together behind the scenes. So we've got just a single entity that we work with that is how we want it to be, without having to kind of script it the traditional way.
Yeah, and it does give you some. I don't know if like making it private is the right term, but for instance here, type item. Okay, I can get sysid number, class name, owner, profile, content. I can't get anything else from that object, even though
Yes.
that item has got other things on the glide record. I can only get the things that have been defined here in my query. So if we look at my query, you can see here query. One of the things that keeps tripping me up, okay, so if remember I added assigned to as a user object.
Yeah.
And this is not a script field, so the formatting kind of throws me out. So I know you're a Sublime user.
I'll use whatever.
I'm using VS Code kind of as standard, but not that well. Probably there's loads of tricks. There is a GraphQL plugin, but I've not installed it on this instance. Okay, so I probably should have done, because I can't format it unless it is GraphQL, can I? No, but at least I can use tabs and stuff. So yeah, under here, if I do assigned to, this is going to give me a funny error, and this error has caught me out a number of times. So if I save this, now I've changed the data broker. That means that in my UI builder, it's telling me data resources have changed outside of UIB. Okay, so if I update page, I'm expecting an error that's going to say something about I forget the error message. It should say sub-defined. Subselection required. Subselection required is about the object type, okay? Because in my query, assigned to is now an object. So
yeah,
I've got to specify within that object what items I want back. Name, email, and you can see sysid. Sysid is a type called displayable string, which I stole from I think Brad's example on live coding happy hour, and I'll just put value in there. I'll have to copy that out and paste it back in. But yeah, you can get a GraphQL plugin for VS Code, which allows you to do the command or Alt and F and beautify it. That's changed now, so let's update the page, and you see it's refreshing, and now it's working. And my assigned to, obviously it's null, but that's fine. So that's one of the things that caught me out a number of times actually, is hold on, I'm pretty sure my query looks right, and I'm pretty sure my schema looks right, but it's I changed the schema. Yeah, I changed it in here and made it right. Okay, that's an object, but then I didn't query that object correctly. And one of the things I'm going to struggle with is like how to handle recursiveness.
Right.
So if you look at item, right? When I say item here, it's a control, pretty much. Or it could be a risk. So a control or a risk both have a content. So you can see here content is an object, and parent is content. So I thought I was being really clever here. It's going right, okay, that gives me a sense of recursiveness because content references content. But then I've still got to down here. Where are we? Content, parent, right? I specified in parent. Look at that one, parent. Right, so then
yeah. So how far are you going to go?
Yeah, and this is where I'm like, well, I'm not making this reusable in the best way. I know that can't be efficient because I might expect 1 level, 2 levels, 3 levels, but that's where if I was and you know, for that breadcrumb kind of scenario, what I really want here is imagine that was the controls. Have you ever added the task breadcrumb to the form?
What, on a standard task?
Yeah, like standard. You've got a
Yeah.
UI format, a parent breadcrumb, right?
Yep.
That's the thing I was trying to do here, effectively.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I want it to go all the way back to the top. So a control objective.
I'm just going to Google on the side here while we're on live stream and
That's
figure
perfect.
it out. By the way, I've got chat open, everyone. So if anyone knows how to help with this, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I mean that's just one aspect of GraphQL. So Raf's saying that there's introspection, right? So introspection,
yeah.
I think I've turned it on my instance. You do have to have it enabled. There's a graph. Is there a, let me check. Is it under REST APIs? API Explorer? I think. REST API Explorer. I think GraphQL might be there as a REST API. I'm not sure about this. Let me see. API name. Or did I see this? Global. No. I have got Graphql, but then I struggled with the authentication. Yeah, I've enabled it, Raf. I know it's false by default, but I've turned it on. Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts to learn. Okay, so can you query a GraphQL object within an object? So in some ways, I've done that, Harry. I think within my schema. So if you look here, I've got so the item. Let's just for anyone that's not using Draw.io and doesn't have you know, a license for a premium option.
I've started using this since watching you use it. It's brilliant. It's a lot better. I used to use it back in the day when it first came out, and it was a little bit clunky. It's really good now.
I've only been using it for about a year, maybe 2 years. I used to use Lucidchart, I think it's called, but Lucidchart is amazing. Again, it's premium. This is like open source, but it connects also to OneDrive as well, so you can work collaboratively with it.
It does everything I need to do on a day-to-day basis. So,
and for kind of whiteboarding, you know, if you're sharing a screen with a customer or right now, you know, if you're in the office, you get the whiteboard, you draw it, and then you get your phone out, you take a photo of it because you don't want to lose that drawing. Well, this way, you know, it's kept as well and kind of maintained. So let's just draw this out for anyone who's not sure what the size is like there. So
you're saying about whiteboards. I have a whiteboard and I use it all the time. For me, nothing beats just getting a pen and just sort of thinking and drawing, and then I'll transfer it into this. Yeah, I know a lot of people do.
Yeah, there's something about that physical kind of like pen, drawing, scribbling, you know, scrubbing out.
I can get something wrong and remove it in like a tenth of a second, and I don't know. Everyone has their own way of working, don't they? And I just find for me that works well, especially if I'm sort of, I don't really know where to start. I can just sort of get ideas out, and then you can go from there.
Yeah, and if you, hopefully we can go back to the times when we're in the room properly.
Yeah,
you know, you can look around the room and see people whirling away, see their thoughts, and then try and eke it out of them a little bit, you know, and start drawing and people kind of joining a little bit. When you're sharing remotely, it's a bit difficult to get that engagement, but Draw.io, it changed its name to diagrams.net. Sorry, that's not as catchy. My whiteboard, I was going to say, James, my whiteboard, I don't use it a lot. I use it for more often now for playing hangman with the kids. And then I've got a dartboard hanging on it as well. So yeah,
nice.
I think that is probably why I'm using this more and more. So what I was trying to draw here actually, let me get that, let me call this control objective, right? So I've got a bit distracted there. So control objective, this is from a table that is called content. This is from a table called item. Okay, so a control, I know these aren't crow's feet. That's what we want. So an issue can belong to a control, which is an item, and it can belong, that control can belong to a control objective, which is a content. Sorry, I'm calling that entity, which is a profile. The control objective has got a parent field. So that can just keep going and going all the way up.
Yeah. So it looks like we can use something called a fragment, but I'm going to say this is too techy to go into right now.
Don't fancy your chances.
There are ways of doing it.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. So a fragment, we'll park that, take it away. So yeah, and that query within a query that Harry's saying, it's kind of like I'm doing that, but it's so explicit within the query. If I look at my query, wherever that is, okay, I've got it on here. I am doing a query within a query because I'm saying parent, and within that parent object, I'm calling parent again. I'm hard coding the number of relationships.
Yeah.
That can't be the best way of doing it. There must be another way. But yeah, look, you can build your own stuff. Displayable string. That just stops that coming back because I think every string comes back still with a value and a display value. But this is still not how I'm actually getting this stuff. So there's it's in the transform. It's in the transform. So I've got a GraphQL API, which is my schema. My query is calling, which is a data broker. My GraphQL data broker, and you've got properties here, which you can pass in. So I'm passing number in here. Number is specified with a $sign. I don't know if the $sign is mandatory, but it obviously denotes there that is a variable. That number there and the string exclamation mark is mandatory. Then that number gets passed back down here for number. Okay, so test issue number. And then in my, go back to my API, you can see that number here is in my query. So I'm specifying it with parenthesis here. So that's me getting my data into GraphQL. And you can see data.scope.namespace issue. So that's my GraphQL data package. I've then
just to touch very quickly back on the recursiveness, just found out categorically it's not allowed. Apparently the problem is that GraphQL has no way of actually confirming that the data it encounters is not infinitely recursive. So it explicitly just says you don't do it.
Okay.
So if you think you might have 10 things, you manually say check for 10 items.
So I think that then is the use case for the transform. Okay, because if you look at what the transform's doing here, GraphQL1, right? GRCQL1. My naming convention's not great. I know we've spoken about naming conventions before. They are typically using snake case, which I think will appeal to your eye. I think you would prefer a snake case for variables.
It's all out the window with UI Builder because it's all defined in kind of
for you. Yeah, you can't. If I want to call this, I think if I want to call this GRCQL, will it let me? Oh, it will. Okay, but there's certain things you can't do it. So here we can.
I don't know if I'd care enough, to be honest. No. It's like it's making work for yourself. You don't need that.
No, but I think naming conventions does become important. So have one, whatever it is. Hang your hat on something. So let me call this transform, because then when you're binding your data up here, it's easier to know which one you're dealing with.
It would do that though if you did it on the label, wouldn't it? So rather than GRCQL1 on the label.
How do you mean? So okay, does
it do it? Does it update it if you change that? No.
Oh no, when you first create it, I think it does.
Right, yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, so when you first create it, it'll do it automatically. So just choose good labels from the outset.
Yeah, exactly. Meaningful, right? Make them meaningful. Yep. What are they? And then that should kind of make sense afterwards. But if it's starting to not make sense, go back and update them, because you might have seen that down here I changed the name. Up here I've got a binding to it, and it did update all the references. So that's nice. you should also consider doing the same for your components. You can see up here breadcrumbs 1, breadcrumbs 2, container 1, container 2, etc. Once you start building something out, kind of for a bit of hygiene, I'd suggest go back through and give them some good names once you've got a little bit of stability, because referring to them later, and especially if it's something that's going to go into if something that's going to go into production, you know, consider that. Harry's,
it's being your future best friend, isn't it? Making your life easier when you come back to it.
For future me, exactly. That's an expression that I've heard quite a bit of. I think Harry's trying to trigger me here. I'm not going to rise to it, Harry. I'm not rising. James, you love a good GR variable.
I love a good GR. Yeah. It's just a running joke now.
It's fine. It's fine. So, what's going on? I've got a transform. I'm passing my GraphQL data into that transform. What's happening with that? So, can anyone remember what the table name is for transforms? It's sysux data broker transform. And let's grab that and do a .list. And that's when I realized that it's just using JavaScript and script includes, and it's not that different. And then I felt a lot more comfortable. So let's take a look at this. Data broker server script. This is okay, so it's called a server script, but it's called a data broker transform. This is taking a property, right? So that's specified as GraphQL data. Field type, it's just an object, okay, but we've just kind of labeled it in, the UI builder as GraphQL data. So it's an object. Effectively, it's just a bunch of JSON. And the same thing's happening with glide query. Have you messed with glide query at all, James?
Not really. I think it's just haven't had a use for it at the moment. But I can see what they're doing. They're sort of they finally made a sort of proper API, I guess, for stuff that us oldies have kind of been building manually for a while. It's good.
I think the one thing that, when I asked the question of some people that were quite keen on it and really saw the benefits, why should I change? Why should I start using this thing? And it's not to say that ServiceNow are recommending it yet. I think it's more a case of here's something to try and see how it goes. But the error checking on there seemed to be a lot better. So if you add a query to a glide record, then do a delete multiple, and the field that you're querying on doesn't even exist. Let's say that I said on the task table assigned to is not empty, but I spelled assigned to wrong. It returns everything.
You have pain.
A lot of pain, right? Delete multiple, all my tasks are gone. Obviously, you should never do that. With glide query, it will actually return an error and say that field doesn't exist, and it won't delete everything. So that for me was like, okay, I can't argue with that. That sounds like there's some value here. So back to my server script. So I've got my properties and I've got my script, and now it's starting to give me a bit of a WYSIWYG, or no, what do you call this, IDE view. Function transform input. I don't know if this, I think if you create a brand new one, this is blank, so I copied this from somewhere and then modified it. So input is obviously the thing that's coming in here, and I think it's the whole lot. So if you've got multiple inputs, then you can see here input dot GraphQL data. That's input dot GraphQL data. So my issue equals, and then I'm dot walking down my GraphQL. I'm calling it a package, but if I look at, let's just see it again. Yeah, data dot namespace dot namespace. That's application namespace, schema namespace dot issue, and then I'm in my GraphQL down here, right? So everything in here, issue dot which way did I go? This one. Yeah, dot issue. So the whole issue object is now in my local variable. Obviously, if I don't have one, I return a blank array. Result is going to be, this is the input that I want for my breadcrumb. So it needs to be an array.
Yep.
So I'll just return, well, in fact here, I mean, I could return result there because I've defined result at the top. Otherwise,
I have to say, mate, that amount of dot walking kind of, I kind of take issue with, in the fact that I'm so used to stuff like that breaking, because any one of those could be null, like in traditional JavaScript, and it will just throw an error, and then the user's got no idea what's going on. In this case, I think it's probably fine, because it's something that we can't tamper with, or we users can't tamper with. But I'd normally put a try catch around that or something, or test it.
Yeah, I think that's try catch probably the safest thing. At least you've got a complete failsafe there. This could change. That's here.
Yeah.
Data dot this. That's your application namespace, and that's your schema namespace. So this bit is fairly robust, I think.
I like I say, I think I can kind of tolerate it. I'm sure ServiceNow will do some checking behind the scenes on like wrapping this. So if it does throw an error, it will kind of tell you. But you've got to engineer sort of a safe failure point potentially. It'd be worth sort of checking that, wouldn't it?
It's a very good point, right? So yeah, I didn't put any defensiveness in here. I was just trying to get it working. But yeah, you're right. Now you look at it. In a traditional object, you would be testing that at each point.
Well, do you know what the funny thing? I've seen this kind of stuff in business rules, and it just blows up and then just throws, dumps everything in syslog. And it's like, why are we not checking? So people, if you're building these kind of things, don't ever assume that object is always in play.
And even if that object is, this might not be an object.
Yeah.
So then this bit breaks, and yeah, that looks a bit sensitive. Now you've called it out. I hadn't thought of that, so I would probably suggest making it more defensive. This is not production ready. Do not promote. So it is working though. Right now it's working, but I believe it might be a little bit delicate. So
well, something to test out will be actually breaking it. Not for now, but in a different. What happens if you do change that?
Yeah, what if you just take that away from your schema? Does it fail gracefully or not? I think probably is the question. So I return items, right? I return an object with items that's got my result in it. That, I think, like I said, I'd stolen the frame of this function and then just changed it to my requirements.
Yeah. No. So I think what the first thing sort of enters my mind here is, why are you returning an object? But I think it is good practice just for anyone that's looking at this, because you could just return the result and just have an array and work with the array. But by returning an object, you're kind of future-proofing your design here, because if you ever wanted to add something else and return that, you don't need to go and change anything. You just add it and you can reuse that object elsewhere.
You have made me think though that if I don't have an issue, then I'm actually returning an array here.
That is correct.
So that's bad.
So
how can I make that?
Just initialize your result as a result equals an object with an empty items array.
Call that array.
So I would just do result.items.push.
Ah, right. Okay, hold on. Let me see. That is.
But this is another good point though, because if for some reason you introduce an error in that declaration, obviously because you're defining it as a variable there, that can just be kind of, especially if you stack them, that can be difficult to debug. I think you're fine on this, but
where did I? Is that what I've got? Okay,
and then it's just the bottom one, line 23. You just want to return result.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So I've changed that. It's okay. It's because when I was doing this before, I kind of initialized my breadcrumb with like a blank or a home kind of one,
Yeah.
and then I looped through it. But here I'm just accessing issue.number, issue.item.number. So, you know, this is not probably the best way to do it, but effectively what you've got here in this script is your kind of native platform JavaScript. This is not you know, anything real different to what we're used to. So if you want to loop through something, if you want to do a glide record from here, you can access all of the APIs in the platform and you know, do what you normally do, but return it in a way that's being expected by your component. And the other thing you may have noticed, I've got a breakpoint there. So let's just demonstrate that. Script debugger. I had a question last week from John. He said, can you use debug this in the platform? Can you use explore? So I don't know about the explore thing, James, but you're probably one of the best people to answer that. But at least from a script debugger perspective, if I hit update page, that should trigger the call, which should give me a breakpoint. Yes, here. So I'm actually in my data broker script, my GraphQL transform.
Your transform,
I'm
yeah.
not sure what to call it, but yeah, it's in there. So you can handle this. And I'd imagine that if this was actually calling a script include, that's for me where Explore would come in, because I'd be using Explore to work with my API, make sure it's, you know, I'm passing these parameters in. What am I getting back? Looking at my object. But right now, I don't know where Explore fits into this kind of.
So where you'd use this is what's interesting about this is, and this is the first time I've seen this, is the, you know, ServiceNow are wrapping this in, you know, immediately executing function and passing in the GraphQL data as the input. So what you could do is, if you could get hold of that data, you could then put this whole script in Explore and run it that way. So if you click on global, you've got the input on the right hand side. Can you copy that out anyway?
Data. So that's the same thing that's coming in here, is it? Input.
So it would be, yeah.
I'll tell you what, I've got a question, James. Something that. Oh, it's not for you. Sorry, I'm in script debugger. You're not script debugger. You're Explore. Sorry, apologies. Do you know much about this script debugger though? Because I always struggle when you're dealing with a script include, and you start messing with the prototype using this, right?
Yeah.
It gets lost. So I end up sometimes declaring a variable locally just so I can see it in, because I know it's going to make my debugging more friendly. But this kind of disappears. It's not relevant right now. Apologies. I'm sitting on that query, and I'm going to find the right person.
Yeah, I don't think it would do, because that's the actual scope. So I don't think that actually captures that and presents it, because it's not a variable. So yeah, if you wanted to see the whole thing, you would do that, or you'd set your breakpoint at a different, just when you call that script, and then step into it from outside.
That troubles me sometimes in debugging. But sorry, so you've got what you said to me then. You going back a bit, you said what's interesting here is that they've declared this in an immediately executing function. So the function that we see in here, right, the data broker server script, my transform, it starts function, but actually we can see that that's been wrapped in this function, right? Where does it end? Is it that one? Yeah, so that's the end of the function, and it's passing in. Is this what you mean? So this is what's coming in here. This bit is.
So they're just passing in an object with GraphQL data as the property coming in.
I don't think when I'm debugging things, I don't think I look around. I think I go, right, okay, that's my breakpoint, and I don't look up here and I don't look down there. So I never actually noticed this.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter that much. It's just what we can see here is the code that ServiceNow is actually running on the back end. So whilst it is running your script, they're wrapping it before they're running it.
Yeah. Okay. And you can access that here, but you can't copy that out, right? That's what you were asking. Is that available?
Yeah, you can't right click on that, can you, and do anything with it? No.
No.
So just to sort of explain, if you had this, I mean, you could get it out of UI Builder potentially, couldn't you? From the output panel.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you copied that output, you could put that into the JSON field within Explore, and then you can use that user data and pass that into this function. So you could copy this function, put that in Explore, and then you could just work completely independently. Because you don't necessarily need to generate that data every time if you've got an example.
Yeah. Okay. I think that what you said there about the JSON bit, I know you showed this before, and I don't think that's something I'm familiar with. I just noticed, maybe we should try it, but I just noticed down here this console. I think this is quite new.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that I've just seen that as well. So it'd be interesting to.
You can access your. You can access and do things like actually manipulate your runtime. So result.items.push. Imagine if I push in here. I want to push an object in here, and I'll call it label fill href. I'll just give that a £, hashtag, whatever. I think that might push into it. Yeah, so look up here. It doesn't seem to have right now.
So it's because where you'd written it was on line 16, so that was the first element to be pushed in to the array. So that's why your result was 1. What I'd be interested to know, can you do console.log input in there? Does it work as in a traditional
console log input like this?
Yeah.
Console's not defined.
Okay, so it doesn't have the traditional console stuff in there, but
yeah, look here, its access is this.
Yeah.
So its scope is that, but I've not returned my result yet. I'm wondering now, do I get that extra property in my GraphQL? Let's find out. Let's have a look. Transform. Yeah, it's in there.
Yeah.
Excellent. And it's pushed in at the top. It's pushed in at the top. So that's a bit about debugging, I guess. I mean, that's not... Well, that wasn't even on the agenda.
It's pretty cool. What would happen if you just typed input? Can we run that again very quickly?
Yeah, of course. So every time you make a call... So you see that now that's got that data and it's there for preview. Probably the best way to do that again is to refresh my page and expect that to hang. Yeah, so I'm in here. So if I type,
so if you just type input, what is that?
It's an object.
So it's just going to give you the object.
Can I JSON.stringify it? Do you think?
Yep.
There we go.
There you go. So now you could copy. Have you got Explore installed?
Of course.
So if you copy that whole thing, yep, and go to Explore. Hey Jace, good to have you, man. And then on the user data tab on the right, so you can now paste that in there.
Right, I've seen you do this, and you know what? I didn't like it. Hold on. So
hopefully they haven't turned off copy.
No, I think it's probably me using keyboard commands, and you know sometimes when you do a keyboard shortcut and it's in the wrong place. I think that's what it is. Yes. Okay.
So you can prettify that if you want to.
Okay.
There you go. And then if you, on the left-hand side, if you type user_data, it tells you that that's easily add large strings using the variable user data. So now if you run that, you've
Now I've
now got
got
an
it.
object that you can step through. So now with your transform script, you could copy your transform script in and then just run it through that, edit your transform script, get it working, see that your output's right.
Okay, let's take this as an example. So,
Yeah.
yeah, hey Jace, excellent to have you on board. Don't know if we can, because I
So
think we
now
could
just
bring you up
do
to speed.
transform user data.
Yes, transform user data, and I'll get my items.
There you go. So, and you can now step through it.
Great. So you say, right, okay, user data over here is like a local copy of it's like my template data, right? So the same in UI Builder, you've got your preview over here, so you know it's working and it's connected and it's all doing stuff. But now you want to tweak it. You don't want to keep going back through that loop.
Exactly.
Go into Explore, work on it. Kind of, it's locally. Is locally the right word? It's almost like, and sorry, in 4.8, it saves my last query.
Yep.
In here.
On the eye.
Does it save my last user data? Or if I
Certainly does, mate. Yep.
Excellent. So for instance, if I close this now, no harm done, right? I'll come back into Explore and user data, not in there. Where's it gone? Panicking. Come in here. Where is it? There. Object.
Bug. There you go.
Oh, excellent. We've got a bug. No worries. Not a problem.
I think if it was text, it would work. That is actually on my to-do list. So
no worries. I know you're busy, and I'm just happy you're here. So look,
I'm gonna double check that's in the backlog as well now.
That's a P1, mate. So, but what's the harm? I've got my data. Save it locally, paste it in here. I can now work on my transformation, get it doing what I want it to do, and then go and update back. It's the kind of the workflow that you're doing on the platform anyway. If you've got Explore, get things right, then go in and save them. It saves multiple versions. We don't see versions down here. I wonder. Let's just check if I configure my related lists. Edit this view in global. I want to see versions on here.
I think versions should be just default on everything. It's like so handy to go back through.
And updated should be on every column.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Is there anywhere where updated shouldn't be? It's the one thing I add. I was talking to somebody, I think it was on Slack or watching someone's conversation about, can you add, like, working in different instances, the ability to kind of have your standard UI lists and, run a script or something that goes and puts updated on all of your tables that you access, or when you access them, it automatically adds them and stuff like that. I mean, you could get carried away, I'm sure, but there's certainly some user preference state that would be nice to, after a clone and everything.
Yeah, I mean, if you customize all your, you could certainly do it from the fields perspective just by exporting your user preferences. You just have to make sure that they're assigned to the right user.
Or reassign them afterwards. But
yeah.
Okay, cool. So where are we up to? I mean, should we try and do something else? I'm conscious we've kind of hit the hour mark, which is, sometimes more than enough, but Jace has just arrived. I've got a bit more energy. My tea's run out.
We're kind of obligated to just do a bit more for Jace, aren't we?
I think so. Yeah, let's not just Jace is here, wrap it up. So what have we got? We've got a transform. Is it kind of, for you, James, I think you're relatively new to UI Builder, not played around with it, seen kind of the potential maybe. Is this making sense to you? Like, you feel like from this that you could go into UI Builder and hang your data together? You could make it start happening?
Yeah, totally. I think there's some, I think as with everything, when you put it into an interface, for me, I'm kind of I like efficiency, and there's a lot of stuff in here that I'm like, I could potentially write this in 5 lines of code where I'm having to spend 10 minutes building it. But the benefit is that then I'm not the only one that knows how to do it. So I can definitely see, the benefits of this.
I think the key thing for me, the bit I've been struggling with, and I feel like I've got to it now, is okay. So my experience, I've got my issue page, but actually, the way issue is dealing with things, if I navigate from issue and navigate to my control, guess what? My data isn't that different. So, that GraphQL kind of layer. I don't know if this is not really an API, is it? What one would you use for that?
I just use squares for most things.
Squares, yeah. and then is Raf still on? I don't know if Raf's on, but he won't be happy if I don't change the style to sketch. Yeah. I think it feels like we're on a whiteboard then. Why is the whole thing not changed? Style, sketch. There we go. Yeah, I mean it does look a bit nicer. But yeah, you've got your kind of GraphQL API here.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the bit that I wasn't quite getting that. This page, assume this is a page as well. Let's change that. I like to have the straight lines on here. Obviously in this page, I might be asking a slightly different question, but what I'm asking it of should be common. And that's the bit that I'm kind of like, oh, right, now it's clicking together. The GraphQL obviously has got just a query. Then that's calling the API. You've got a transformation, which is a bit more where I'm comfortable. But that commonality and that ability to reuse data, I think, comes down at this level between pages. That's the bit that's kind of making sense to me. So
I think I don't know if I would. I think you could break it down that way. For me, though, the API is about being kind of restrictive deliberately. It's there's a point here where it's good not to create that dependency from 2 things and actually have your control item just have a separate API. Even though it's inheriting, and in theory you could do that.
So let's just take a look
at the simplicity API. And duplication is kind of thing.
So look here, I've got you've got this connection. So if you think about a control, right, an issue, it's got a relationship to an item. Can we maximize this a little bit? It's got a relationship to an item. So my query up here is where I get the reuse, I feel. So the question I'm going to ask it is going to be, so I might say in here item. And I'd probably pass in the ID, to be honest, but let's stick with number just for consistency. But then that becomes item. So I'm reusing item if I ask for item.
Yep.
But if I ask for issue, then I get issue, but issue can reuse item. So does that make sense that it's still one API, but my queries then, I think it's a server script. No, here's my query. Here I'm asking for issue.
Yep.
So my schema namespace, application namespace, schema namespace. Let me see if I'm getting this right. Shrink that. Yeah. Application namespace, schema namespace, test. Obviously, that's a beautiful name. Test.issue. In here, GraphQL test.issue. Well, not test. Yeah, it's nested. That would then be, I might have another data broker that passes in, rather than passing in number, it might pass in item ID, and I would call this, and then after that I would say item.
Yep. So I think that is definitely where you can go down the reuse perspective, but it really depends on, you've almost got to start at the beginning and just be like, what is my data model? What am I going to be using this for? if you want to go down the route of, well, I have no idea what anyone's going to be using it for, but this is what I want to publish, then you can definitely go down that route, can't you? I guess if you want to have two different items, so one item call is returning one set of values, another item call is returning another. You could, in theory, put that in the same GraphQL thing, API, but are you overloading it at that point? Are you making it more difficult to maintain? I don't know. I'm not a GraphQL expert. It's just,
This is it. You can't make those design decisions effectively at this stage of it. Like, I'm a complete novice here, and just the fact that I've figured out this thing is here, for me, I was like, wow, take a drink. Then I think we start to probably be able to ask the right questions. Is that the right way to do it? Should I be putting those things in there? I don't know, but the fact I feel like there's got to be a bit of benefit of using this thing. I've seen these things get quite large.
Yeah.
I think it's only when you call them that it's using it. I don't know. So
you're essentially defining, that API for your whole app put in one place. So it's sort of in one sense it makes it easier because there's only one place you've got to go and edit anything. So if you're using, this API across your app, you've only got to update it in one place and everything gets updated. But the question is, do you want that?
Yeah.
Do you want to have that kind of
break everything with one little change as well?
Yeah. I mean, whether it would or not, I don't know, because if you're removing something, then maybe, but adding probably wouldn't be an issue. But then I don't know if I'd want to go through and recreate all the resolvers and mappings every time either. So it's definitely much more design heavy at the front end. I mean, you could try and figure it out, but I don't know what the best practice would be on this.
No, I don't know that there is one yet. I think we've got to fail. Yeah. We've got to fail at it a few times and go, okay, that maybe I should have done it differently.
If it works, it's good enough, isn't it?
For now, for now, yes. When stuff starts trickling down from the actual product or the platform, release more and more examples, then I think we can start looking at, okay, that's how they're doing it there. Does that fit? Yep. Does that fit for me? Do I want to do it that way? Or, I think probably got to understand GraphQL, like you just said about the recursiveness. It deliberately doesn't let you be recursive. Should we try and make in here where we explore? So
I think for that, you just need to pick kind of, well, how many parents am I going to expect? You just need to take a decision on that. If the likelihood is you're not going to go more than 5, really, are you? So if you build it's not that much extra effort just to copy paste a few times and say, I've got 5 levels. And then from what I can see, you can use fragments to make those objects a bit easier to reuse.
Yeah, so looking at this as a transform script is not the right place to do it either, because I've already got my data at this point.
Yep.
I think I might need to take that one away and mull it over a bit. Is there anything else, James, you think we should have a little poke around on? Sorry, you were just about to say something.
All I was going to say was, I think just with all of this kind of stuff, it really is, don't try and perfect it. If you've got something that works, run with it. Because you could be here literally for months and years on end refactoring to make it as efficient as possible. And then you find out that only one person uses it. Refactor when you need to and when it demands it. Don't overthink it, because you'll learn it soon enough.
Yeah, and for me, the way to learn this stuff so far has been to have a go at it, realise what I don't know, go and learn that thing, come back. Yep. Like I said, I've said to Raf several times, I'm flying, mate. I'm flying on this. I'm literally thought I was. Then I stumble and go, right, okay, actually I don't know that thing. Go away and learn it and come back. So I feel
that is what makes it fun, though. I mean, I've learned a heck of a lot tonight, so it's been great.
Absolutely. There's one thing I didn't mention that is important is your ACLs. So, and I think this is a benefit, right, for security purposes. Every one of your data brokers, when you first define them, I think it's at the data broker level. It might be, I don't know if it's at the transform level, but you have to provide an execute ACL for that data broker. Okay, and you may have noticed on one of them, I think it was my transform. No, it's my API. I've turned off authentication just because it was easier. Obviously, that's not good.
Yeah.
Probably I'm going to turn it back on. Just in case anyone's seen my
see you
see my PDI URL and start hitting that. So you've got authorization at the API level like you'd expect with REST, etc. But then at your data brokers, the sysid of this has an ACL. So I think that's beneficial for, if we were talking about this on a like Glide Ajax should have an ACL, but it doesn't enforce it. This says, sorry, you haven't got one. I can't proceed.
That is the default now, and I think it's a good approach. I mean, obviously they brought that in with the high security kind of stuff as well. Default is you have no access unless it's explicitly given. It just makes it safer. There's too many times that you log into an instance and find you can do anything because it wasn't set to be restricted by default.
Yeah, security
not so
by
much
default.
now, but
yeah.
And how it's totally balanced, and yeah.
So I don't think we've achieved so much here, James. It's very much been a walkthrough. Unless there's anything else, I think maybe we should switch it back. We've gone, I think, respectfully over the hour. Let's see if I can do this. Last time I ended up being in two places. So how do I switch this one? I think it's this one. If I say stop sharing and cut that way. We're back. Are we both on the screen? I think so. Yes. Should be. Right. I'm looking over here. That's OBS window over there. Camera's over here. I was with a customer recently who said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm taking notes in the other monitor. Honestly, like I'm listening to you." And I reported, this is everything I've written down. I am listening, honestly. So, I think sometimes the camera angles aren't favourable for streaming. So what have we learned today, James?
Too much.
You can use
We've learned that
Explore.
it's complicated.
Yeah, you could use Explore as well for, to John's question, can you use Explore? Of course you can. It's complicated. What was the most complicated bit?
I think it's understanding that structure from, you've got to build your API, you've got the transform coming out the back of it, you've got sort of that 4-level hierarchy, I guess, in terms of what you can, just how to get that actual initial data out. You have to start from somewhere. If you went in and started from scratch, you'd be there a little while, I think, wouldn't you?
I have been there a little while, and
yeah,
I was like, it's working, right? Let me tell someone, and then try and remember how did I get here, and that's why I forgot at the end. Oh yeah, there was an ACL. So when you first go to do it, it will tell you, and then you're like, thankfully I've seen it and been down that sort of path before, and was like, okay, I know what I'm doing here. So there's quite a few places to kind of trip.
Yeah,
but I would suggest to people get on Quebec, get your PDI onto Quebec, have a go at it and see how you get on. That's all I can say for UI Builder. Check out the blogs, like I say, I'll link them, developer.servicenow.com of course, but also some of the other community people are doing a lot of the hard work.
Yeah, there's lots of good content out there now. It's coming thick and fast, I think. People have been excited about this for a long time, haven't they? So,
what else are you excited about on Quebec? Anything that you've seen in the kind of the stuff that's out there that you're looking forward to messing around with?
Not at the moment, to be honest. It's um, just getting into UI Builder, making use of this is probably there for me. There's a lot of good stuff coming out, but I don't have anything specific right now.
I think the other thing that I've lost focus on entirely is instant scan. That's something I was like, right, I want to do something on this, but I won't be this week anyway. Live Coding Happy Hour on Friday is doing something on instant scan. That looks like it's gonna. You might get caught with your GR variables.
Yeah, you definitely will.
I don't know if that's a check yet, but that's something I think will improve the quality of life in the development cycle over time once it starts to get bedded in. Now it's native on the platform.
Yeah,
I think it's something that will be of benefit.
definitely. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, there's a few other options out there, but this is now in all the same, and you can build your own checks as well. So, James, thanks for joining me tonight. Is there anything you want to shout out? Any kind of shameless plugs or people or anything? Have we got anything on the chat that we've missed? Anything to summarise? Oh, David says you've got a nice looking microphone. So we had a quick chat about that at the start, didn't we? So what are you?
Yeah.
What are you rocking there?
It's a Shure SM7B, very decent microphone. Yeah, I actually bought all my kit about 5 years ago, I think, in a failed attempt at a YouTube career.
Well, we're kickstarting that again. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought I'd better put it to use, so that's why I'm kickstarting that again. Yeah.
Even the stand looks good, mate. Even the stand is it looks robust.
It's fun. I got it all. I got all my kit as a set off someone who bought it all brand new, and then just never used it. So I was like, yeah, I can't pass that up. I'm a bit of an audiophile myself, so.
I'd like to say I was, but you've seen my mic. I'm not going to go into it, but just take that off.
It works. It's fine.
Camera. My green screen actually was the. So it's like it's two lighting tripods, and then I bought them ages ago for like photography. Like a good 7 odd years ago, I've got a Canon 350D, like the first digital camera. And the problem with that is the battery. So I don't get, by the time you've charged it, and then if you do start messing around with it, it's unreliable on the battery now, even with the replacements I've bought. So I had these tripods kicking around, and then recently I just bought a bar that joins them up. It just plugs into the spigot, and then like it's green muslin. So it's nice to have when you've bought that kit. And then you think, oh, actually, I've got something there that will help with that. So
definitely.
But yeah, so I'll link. I think your channel's in the description. I'll make sure that that's available. What do we have to say? Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell.
Yeah, I'm too high, but it's pointing down there, isn't it? Doing
over there somewhere. Oh, I don't know where they are. Yeah, thanks, James, for joining me tonight. Thanks to everyone who's tuned in. Stay tuned to see what's happening next, and I'll try and fade us out with as much grace as we came in with. So thanks everyone, stay safe, and see you soon.
Fantastic. Thanks everyone.